Malo laval soy fuelaw leil ne yaso, wa'u o Gingerley Porter, ma Michael McDonough, molotato prokalama ole KokoBytes. Talofa, talofa, talofa lava. This is another addition to our program, KokoBytes, where we keep your cup of Coco Samoa full and rich with innovations and creativity in American Samoa's tech community. I am Gingerley Porter with my co-host, Michael McDonough from the American Samoa Department of Commerce. Good morning, Michael.
Alofa, and good morning, Ginger. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. Good to see you again on the KokoBytes program. It's been a little while.
Absolutely. And I have to initially say, where are you today? Just ask you.
Well, of course, I'm in the number one U.S. territory. Of course, I'm biased, of American Samoa. And I chose this location because it's a breathtaking view of the Tafuna Plains. So that's the first hint. And usually when people see this photo, that's the question that that we get. Where is that? Well, this is the village of Aloau. Or as some folks refer to here, Alaska. It gets cold up there.
I was going to say, by at first glance, it looks like, some pavilion or some Greek, structure somewhere. But yeah, good to know. So Alaska it is. Aloau.
Yeah. I think the temperature gets as low as maybe 73 degrees up there. So it's a little chilly. That's sweater weather. For us here in the island.
Absolutely.
The structure in the background, just for those who are wondering, it's remnants of an old home that used to sit right at the top of the road as you get into Aloau. But it's become one of the must-see visitor locations on the island because of the beautiful view. I don't know if you can see it, but in the back there, the Ili Ili golf course is down there. The Tafuna International Airport is out in the distance, and of course the beautiful Pacific Ocean. So if you're here on island in American Samoa, take a walk up that wonderful road to Aloau, get some exercise, or hop in a car. It's a great scenic point.
And experience the 73-degree weather up there. That's summer for many places, right?
Yeah. It's probably low 80s right now. I'm not sure.
Well, today for our KokoBytes, we thought we'd, take you back and start from the foundation of some of the discussions that we've had. So to date, we've interviewed or guest people on our program, about seven of them. And all of them very diverse perspectives and diverse fields. But the foundation of it all is broadband, right? The basis of our discussion have been, how do these people in their fields and their expertise use broadband to further their work and support services in American Samoa, or even bring businesses to American Samoa?
Right.
So, I wanted to ask you, so where did it all start for you for the American Samoa Territorial Broadband Strategy? What is that? What is the project about, and what are the goals of this project?
Well, that's a great place to start. And it's, as you pointed out, it's always good to go back and revisit where everything began. Without going into too lengthy of an explanation, it simply boiled down to this for us here in the Department of Commerce. We've invested as a territory upwards of $140 million, almost $150 million to modernize our telecommunications infrastructure here in American Samoa. And as one of our guests recently had pointed out, Mr. Hawaiki himself, Remy Galasso, we are now the most connected island nation in the region. But the question was, now that the infrastructure is in place, there's no more room for complaining about slow internet or limited capacity. The question now becomes, what's next? What do we do with all of this broadband? It's a fantastic resource, and we now need to put the network and the resource to work. And so that's where it all began. And so here at the Department of Commerce, we took it upon ourselves to tackle that issue head on. Of course, the folks at ASTICA are critical to this whole process, but they have an operation to run, right? They're running
Right.
a business essentially, and so the Department of Commerce is trying to do its part to move this initiative forward. So that's really where it all started, and through the early stages of trying to conceptualize what exactly we needed to do, because I think it's a big question and it's very fuzzy when you when you start to really drill down and think about it. We've developed three, I guess, main objectives of the American Samoa Territorial Broadband Strategy, and that those three objectives are: number one, to effectively leverage broadband across all industries, and I'll come back to that in just a second. Objective number two is to heighten the awareness of our capabilities here, both on the island as well as abroad. And then objective number three is to address the digital divide that still exists despite the presence of the most modern telecommunications infrastructure in the region. So those are our three big objectives. But I know we're going to jump into these with a little bit more detail as we continue this discussion, but that's where we are. And as you know, Ginger, as the project manager for this project, we've met on a weekly basis with several people from various industries. And I'll let you jump into that, but a lot of people have put in a lot of time and effort, a lot of smart folks. We have subject matter experts from every industry that have really done a great job so far contributing to this initiative.
Since the beginning, right? So since we started the program, you and I working together on this, there's been a lot of movement and lots of moving pieces, right? But we try to keep up with a lot of these things, and yeah, so that whole, going back to your comment about the weekly thing, right? Weekly conversations that we've had, and I'm really, really happy with how those conversations have progressed, and the amount of people that have the willingness, because this is just, it gets boring after a while, right? When you do something on a weekly basis, but but not this group. Like we've had consistently 20, 30 plus people on a weekly basis. I think that's a pretty good turnout about and the conversation, the level of conversations and the kinds of conversations, ideas that come out of them from all different sectors, because as you mentioned, it's inclusive of public and private nonprofit organizations. We have Red Cross, civil societies that join in the conversations. So lots of ideas that are going into our pot, right, on how to use broadband. So those ideas and those conversations then matured into things like this, right? So our conversation with KokoBytes, and then the monthly webinars with Talatech, and how we define the projects and the priorities, just by hearing these conversations that people are saying. So I think a lot of good things have come out from those weekly and monthly conversations. We've also heard from a lot of experts, who are Samoan and are willing and have the heart to return home, or to do projects that create opportunities for American Samoa. So those that we heard from the Nomaayas. Yeah. So, and we also heard from, a few other people that are out there and sharing their stories. So Sunny talked about opportunities for young people. I really like that. I always go back to that one. So, because I like that homegrown skills, right? And came from the education system, because it's always criticized a lot, the education. So, but it's producing a lot of good products. And I want to say that you and I too are somewhere in there, right? So, public school education, and then
Right.
moving forward, and here we are, talking about these things and trying to create opportunities for American Samoa. The
Right.
other one too for me is, Chris Mangalei. So he talked about coding, a similar story with Sunny, but and also doing similar but different things, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
that's what it is for me, the diversity of opportunities that broadband brings to our society.
Right.
And so since we started this whole project, our weekly conversations have, the group has developed a vision for an American Samoa that maximizes the use of broadband. And so the vision that the group has come up with is, to have affordable broadband internet access, to have a qualified IT workforce and IT infrastructure that supports it, to have appropriate policies and regulations in place, to be able to secure business innovation and development, and to improve the technology literacy, leading to the improvement of the quality of life. So very encompassing. That's the vision that the working group has come up with, right? So everybody wanted to say, all these things, but I think that's a very encompassing and inclusive vision. So you had,
Right.
40, 50 minds that put together that said, here, this is how we want American Samoa to look like, right? As
Right.
far as broadband and technology. So
Right.
I think it's great. So we've been in subgroup discussions. As you
Hmm.
know, we've divided ourselves, these, 50, 60 people
Hmm.
that are part of our working group has now been divided into subgroups. And we have the economic development working group.
Right.
We have education working
Hmm.
group. We have the health. We have policy regulations. We have critical services.
Hmm.
And I always forget the last one, which
Uh,
is
Cybersecurity. Did you mention that?
cybersecurity.
Yeah.
So, those working groups, right, have identified some priorities in their
Right.
specific areas that I think are really crucial to moving American Samoa forward.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It,
So,
yeah. No. It's a lot. I mean, it's a lot to bite off. When you think about everything that we've discussed since June, there's a lot of information, and I'm so grateful for everybody's participation. This is, as you alluded to earlier, it's extra work for everybody who's already got a job, right?
hmm
But
hmm
their presence at every discussion is a sign of their willingness, obviously, but also how important this is to them. And I think we all have come to the realization, one way or another, that we've got to do more. We've got to do more. And so this effort of organizing ourselves so that we do that, it's been a learning experience. It's been a lot of work, obviously, but um, we have October, November, December, 3 more months ahead of us to really
hmm
continue to refine what we hope to accomplish. And
hmm
um, I look forward to the next 3 months. But yeah, it's been a learning experience, to say the least, up to this point.
and
Um,
and to be doing this all virtually like this, right?
yes, I
So
know we
not
thought.
once have we met in person with this group. So this is,
Right.
just another demonstration of technology, right?
Right.
Let alone the restrictions of COVID right now, but
Right.
that we can still do the work and
Right.
progress if we have
Right.
the right tools, the right resources. The foundation of it, of course, is telecommunications, right? The whole broadband.
Right.
Um, we're still able to have these discussions. So I am, yeah, just thinking about that now. I mean, I don't know. It just hit me like what I was like, wow, I have not seeing you
Yeah,
guys in person
yeah,
throughout this
I
whole
know.
process, right?
Yeah, it just so happened to coincide with COVID, right?
Yeah, right, right.
But I did want to share, a little information for our listening audience about this process of developing a broadband strategy. We aren't the only state and or territory out there wrestling with this and trying to do what it is we're hoping to accomplish here. All the states
Hmm.
at some point in the past had developed broadband strategies, but technology and improvements to infrastructure, availability of resources, everything has changed drastically. And um, uh, most states have moved on to establish these broadband offices that are doubling as economic development offices as well. And so when we started this, we actually started it slightly ahead of many of the other states
Hmm.
and territories. We were fortunate enough to get a grant approved by the EDA to help bring you on to help facilitate this process. But most of the states and perhaps the other territories who are trying to do this now are just doing it without those resources. So
Right.
this kind of comes back to us. Here at the Department of Commerce, and in some of the discussions we had right around when Hawaii was becoming a reality, that we had to be ready for it. And so, of course, the application for funding was put
Hmm.
together, and so it was important. I think that we took those steps to make this project a reality, because once we're done, it's going to guide our efforts for the next 3 to 5 years. And if all goes as planned, of course, a plan is only a plan.
Right.
We must follow through and execute on it. But if everything goes as planned, we should see marked improvements in all the industries that you listed off earlier. And education, healthcare, and job creation, economic development. These are really drivers. Once we see improvements in all three of these areas, you'll certainly see improvements across the board. So this is important work. But again, the point I was trying to make was all the states and territories are really working on leveraging their own broadband resources, especially in light of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic.
I know Hawaii has been, working on updating their broadband plan as well. So at the state level, so of course, lots of lessons learned from COVID. I think one of our episodes we heard from the community college. So we interviewed Mr. Sunny Leomiti, and he, discussed their challenges on delivering some of these services during this time, this COVID time. And so
Mhm.
Hawaii is facing the very similar things. They're discovering areas that are not being serviced, or there's no access to broadband for
Right.
students. So lots of challenges there. So I was happy about that conversation with ASCC, that they had a plan. Like there was things in motion that would try to support. It was, they were kind of thrown. Everybody was thrown,
Right.
into the fire. So figure it out, right? So so not all plans are perfect, but at least there was a plan and inclusive of the needs of teachers and students, and the utilization of broadband for education. So
Right, right. And gosh, we're still learning every day. I know at the college and both at the Department of Education, they're learning on the
hmm
fly, if you will. And
hmm
um, to your point about some shortcomings or gaps that you guys are experiencing in Hawaii with connectivity, perhaps rural areas of the state are not connected.
hmm
Um, this brings me back again to a previous conversation we had. We have no excuse. The blast project, right? The blast
yes,
project and the Hawaii,
to the
that
home,
that
right?
combo. Yes, yeah, we have fiber to the premises.
hmm
There are issues here and there, and Aztec is working on addressing them. But we essentially have a network that touches all the homes and businesses here on island. So there's no no excuse. We've got to get we've got to get beyond just using the broadband for the simple everyday stuff like searching and watching,
Mhm.
streaming, video streaming, and things like that.
Mhm. So I throughout our project and our time together on the building this plan, you don't hear so much about reaching that last mile. You know, the terminologies you always used to hear, you know, years ago, like we have to reach that last mile. Not in conversations in American Samoa. I don't hear that very much. So, you know, that's also, you know, added to your point about there's no excuse, right? So everything is now to the home. What we did here, you know, from Tafa, on that our interview, our last interview was then the technology, right? The technology that can that we can use the broadband. So that's kind of their another challenge, right? So now we have the infrastructure, but now we need the devices and the computers and, you know, the technology itself. So
right, and then of course you need the resources to teach people how to use that, and you need the technicians to be available to be able to maintain that equipment. And so all these things are at the center of many of our conversations that we're having from week to week. We have to train our workforce. We have to put resources specifically in that area so that we reach the generations, the younger generations, at a much earlier age, so that, you know, when they exit high school, and this would be an ideal situation, they're ready. You know, they're already ready to take on an IT or ICT facing job. Or at least have identified, you know, a career path that excites them and that they can be passionate about. So going into the second half of our planning year, I guess, this is one of the areas that I look forward to having a lot more discussion, and go beyond just the talking and the discussions, but try to make some things happen right away, right? We've always preached that. We just, you know, planning's great, but getting things done is really where, you know, where our focus should be. But yeah.
So that, I mean, that leads me to my last question, right? So what's next? What is our plan for the next? So let's just say we've done the plan, right? We've identified our priorities, and then what, right? So what do you think we should tackle?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. It's a long list of things, and I obviously prioritization is going to be critical for us moving forward. You know, with a small territory like ours, resources are limited, so we've got to make sure that in our key industries we prioritize our needs, and then again leverage all of the resources that we have out there. And the list is too long to mention here, but we can't just sit back and wait for things to roll down our way. We have to be aggressive and go out and identify funding sources. As an example, leverage partnerships with nonprofits, with foundations to make things happen. All of these things, and you know, I'm starting to see some of that happening right now. But in addition to those two things, I think the key behind what the future holds for American Samoa really is going to come back to leadership. And I'm not talking about just the next governor or the next director, or, you know, I'm talking about leadership at every level of society, whether it's government, private sector. You have smart, energetic, passionate, enthusiastic people everywhere, right? And I think most folks are starting to realize that this new resource we have can make a significant difference in, you know, my job function today, in, you know, my neighbor's role as a teacher, in a colleague's role as a entrepreneur or a business person. My Faifao may also see that. I know he has already. They're streaming live on Facebook, so
Yes.
you know.
Right.
So, but that's really what I refer to when I talk about leadership. At every level,
Mhm.
we have leaders, across the board.
Mhm.
And so I think our job, you and me and our Tala Tech team and our KokoByte team and, our
Mhm.
broadband strategy team really is to continue to organize and inform and educate and then, see what we can do. We're not going to be able to make it, make the change ourselves, right? We're just doing one part of what is required, and that's getting a plan in place. But again, to really make things happen and to make a difference, it's going to come down to leadership. Bold, enthusiastic, resilient
Mhm.
leadership, right?
Right. Yep.
You can't quit. Once you hit a bump in the road, we got to keep going. We got to keep pressing.
Not at all. Not at all. So also as part of our process, we've over time identified some low-hanging fruits, right? We've been able to address some of those immediately. And that's why I really, really like that's another positive for me for our weekly conversations. You hear the issues, everybody's at the table. So you have private sectors, you have the internet service providers, you have government. So okay, so one group is complaining about this. Okay, this group has a solution, and they just jump right in and say, I can help you with this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Things are figured out right then and there, right? So there's that conversation going. So that's one of the big benefits of having these constant and weekly conversations. And another thing too, that the working group talking about implementation of things, right, and acting immediately.
Mhm.
As a working group with our recommendations to the COVID task force, this is from a technical perspective, right? So this
Mhm.
group, this is what we identified as a group as priority. So create these teleworking kits. So
Mhm.
create, do an assessment. So all of these things have, come out of the conversations. And I think those are when we see things moving along, right? So and that there's progress versus, okay, a plan is a plan is a plan, right? So
Right.
over
Right.
time, okay, well, it's a plan, right? So 10 years from now, it's like, Michael, where's that plan we worked
I
on,
know. Oh, let me dust it off
Yeah,
here. Dust it off
exactly.
here
So
somewhere.
but this group has really, took it a step forward and acted upon those things. Like the immediate needs, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it yesterday.
Right.
So, and then, yes, of course, we have our long-term goals, right? So, but the group has been able to identify specific things that we'd like to do next year and the next 2 years and the next 5 years. So, and some of those things that I heard in our subgroup conversations was, everyone agreed that at some point we have to have an organizing body, right?
Right.
Broadband is too important, very too important to be just, out there. And
Right.
so we have to be collective about our actions. And so whatever that will be,
Mhm.
whatever that organizing body or the CIO of government or something, whatever that will be. But I think across the board, everyone wanted to see that. So I'm just, speaking to your point on leadership, right? Because it comes with that as well. So, someone who can lead this crowd that, we've gotten going, with the working group. So we got to take it further, keep it going, keep the chariot going, right? So
Yeah, absolutely,
um
absolutely. And I think you're right. The planning process that we're going through right now is key, but it's finite, right? We started
mhm,
in June, May,
mhm,
and it's going to end in December because it's a project, a grant
right,
funded project.
mhm,
However, moving beyond that, someone has to take the baton and perhaps an office of information technology, ICT, or something along those lines um, will be in our future. I know the recommendations going to coming from the broadband strategy group will include that as one of the key recommendations for leadership to take into account and consideration. And but what we'll see, what that looks like, I know we'll probably have that done in the next few weeks.
Mhm.
But we're also in a transitional phase right now. I know Governor Lolo and his administration are getting ready to hand the baton over to an incoming administration. And again, he's done the heavy lifting. And I've mentioned this before, right?
Mhm.
They've got the blast completed, and they've got the Hawaii key installed. And so perhaps one of the first things that happens next year is that organizational development, so that everything we're talking about now
Mhm.
continues not only into 2021 but beyond. You know, everything is going to continue to change and continue to evolve in terms of technology, and if we aren't staying on top of it, we're going to be left behind. And playing forever catch up is not where we want to be. I mean, I keep coming back to the investment that we've made,
Mhm.
$150 million approximately, right? We've got to make that give us real returns as a territory. And so we'll see where that goes, but it certainly is going to be one of those top recommendations for sure.
Well, with that, thank you so much for joining us today on our look back in the last 7 episodes of KokoBytes, where we keep your cup of Coco Samoa full and rich with innovations and creativity in our tech community. Soifua.